I was shocked by what I found. He paid $100,000 to get that person killed.
So this guy has said to you, I am a hitman. I am a real hitman. And I want to have an interview with you to prove that I am an actual hitman.
I started writing about the so-called Hitman for Hire websites. I go to the administration page, and what do I see? People trying to kill people. People paying money to kill people. People making serious plots, sharing photos, addresses, cars, times, everything.
Meet Chris Monteiro, a self-proclaimed pirate, sysadmin, transhumanist, and internet hipster who delves into cybercrime and tour scams as an editor for Pirate London.
If you let people get away with crimes, other people will commit crimes.
We have to do something about it. The very idea that you could hire someone to kill anyone is a very upsetting idea to me.
Psychologically, it creates a next step. You've made no money or almost no money doing this.
I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because no one else can.
Desiree podcast. Chris Monteiro, grateful that you're here today. How are you?
I know, I'm good. As I was saying, bit neurotic, bit anxious about my life, which when I'm not doing my day job involves trying to stop people murdering people on the dark web.
And we thank you for it.
I mean, I've got a relatively high degree of success and relatively low level of murder, but not a non-zero level of murder, it keeps me busy, I guess.
It's an unfortunate thing to have to say, but I'm glad you've stopped a lot of murders. And the families of those people, I'm sure, are just so thankful for you.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, I beat myself up over this. So we'll go into that into a minute, though, because I mean, how these cases play out and how people are affected by it, and whether they get emotional closure, whether they're happy or not, or what the impact is. This is like lobbying. You know, if someone wants to murder someone and they're found out trying to do so, it's like lobbing a hand grenade into that relationship, into that family. And sure, it's better than someone actually murdering someone, but it's disruptive, let's say, to that person's home and family life. And people pick sides, and people go to jail, and it's not really, and I and to an extent, I bear a degree of responsibility for that, and so I'm incredibly ambivalent to what it is to go around investigating and stopping these murder plots. But again, this is a whole thing,
Why don't you take us from the beginning?
Sure.
Great.
Let's go from the beginning. So, I didn't set out to investigate any murder for hire plots at all. I was enjoying, to an extent, continue to enjoy being a Wikipedia geek and a skeptic. I believe that, you could say increasingly in today's world, but have to buy into that or not. I believe increasingly we have a need to establish facts and truths about the world, especially about areas which are not well covered, where there are misconceptions. Because someone has to do it. It shouldn't just be my opinion versus yours. It should be a case of, well, what are the facts? Where can we agree and where can we agree to disagree? Where can we find truth? And for me, the mission of Wikipedia was a place I could do that. And but a lot of people have done that on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is very well covered on all sorts of topics, cited from mostly good quality sources, mostly unbiased. So it's a good project. But there are gaps, and one of the gaps I found was the coverage on Wikipedia of cybercrime. So me, I'm an IT professional of almost 20 years now. I do cybersecurity stuff, web infrastructure stuff, all sorts of things around security, identity, and the like. And this placed me. I was well placed to start writing up on Wikipedia cybercrime topics. So I did this. I wrote about carding, which is like when you steal financial data and just identity theft and use it to rob people's accounts. And that's now written up on Wikipedia. I wrote about the difference between the dark web and the deep web and all the misconceptions surrounding that. I wrote about the history of the darknet markets, like Silk Road, founded by Ross Ulbricht, and the very first market where you could transact using Bitcoin to buy drugs and stolen data and the like, and how they worked, and how, even though this is a criminal marketplace operated by criminals for criminals, you can mostly go there without being ripped off, and you can experience, safe commerce, which is kind of ironic, but there you go. So, I was writing about all sorts of cybercrime and cybercrime adjacent stuff on Wikipedia, finding the best sources, condensing them, and becoming experts in the area. And when I was done with that, I realized I was leafing through so much rubbish in terms of outright scams, misinformation, urban legends, and nonsense. So not only were you finding things about carding and darknet markets for drugs, you were finding people saying, oh yeah, on the dark web you can find anything. You can find secret AIs which have escaped from government laboratories. You can find people arranging on secret islands midget fights to the death for the elite, where you have to get a ticket for. Or you can do human hunting. That's only a click away. Or if you click through here, you can enter a so-called red room where you can see murder live streamed and you can direct and interact with it. And this is all nonsense. Thank God. But, I collated all the information such that it existed and started debunking it on the skeptic site Rational Wiki. And, it doesn't have such a big impact as Wikipedia, but at least there's information out there. So you can say, this stuff is fake, here's the evidence that we had. Because a lot of people will say, absence of evidence must be true then. I mean, these days, some hoax sweeps the nation, and fake websites are out there supporting it. And you can get a fake website out there supporting an idea much faster, and you can get someone debunking it. You may be familiar with Brandolini's law. It's an order of magnitude more effort to debunk a nonsense than it is to spread it, and that's very, very, very much the case. So yeah, but I did my bit. I didn't expect to debunk these issues because that's not how it works. But at least provide some ammunition for someone looking to do it and do stuff. And then I got into trouble when I started writing about the so-called Hitman for hire websites. Now, a bit of background on this. The founder of the Silk Road, the first darknet market, Russ Ulbricht, did in fact pay over $100,000 to have someone killed when that person claimed to be holding his database hostage. And yeah, he paid $100,000 to get that person killed. That person turned out to be working for the FBI, so it wasn't a real killer. So Russ Ulbricht got scammed.
That's quite a crazy bit of news because he just got released.
Yes, he did. It's a scandal, if you ask me. Now, what happened, of course, this is going way back, of course, is Russ Ulbricht was eventually tracked down for running the Silk Road. He was, rightly a thorn in the side of the DEA for selling drugs on the internet at huge scales, including, fentanyl, which was in fact linked to a number of deaths. But frankly, anyone who's a drug dealer or anyone who's selling hard drugs like that will have that on their hands. There's certainly a discussion to be had around drug liberalization and whether these markets cause more harm than good, whether this was a net benefit or net negative. Regardless, that's not how the U.S. justice system sees it. And so they when they tracked him down, I think they sentenced him to 20 years to make an example of him, which is kind of what you expect from a drug kingpin who was really trying to change things. But during his court proceedings, they did in fact raise charges about his murder for hire attempt. Because this guy wasn't just, as some people say, a guy who made a website and who just believed in libertarianism. No, he evolved into a drug dealer who tried to have people killed. Now, he didn't have people killed, but he definitely tried. We can see the evidence on the blockchain of his payments, and we have the chat logs. It's all out there. And and of course he's been pardoned since, and is a free man for his. And he did 8 years in prison, which is that's not insignificant. But he was never charged for his murder for hire. We could talk about this whole thing, frankly, but in my opinion, it was a mistake. When you address, address some drug dealer, you should absolutely get them for the drugs and the violence. But they thought, we'll get them for the drugs, and that'll be fine. And then he got let out by recently. So I don't agree with that agree with that. I think that was wrong.
That's amazing. Wow.
I think he should be charged for his attempted murder. But when you try to, your person you're trying to do is actually an FBI informant, it makes things more complicated. There are legal stuff I can get into if you're interested. It's really complicated. So, anyway, regardless, the whole association with dark web and darknet markets and murder for hire was very strong because people heard this story, there were people on the Silk Road selling so-called murder for hire for quite some time, but they're all scammers. They weren't real. So after a while, Silk Road had to put in a rule which says, well, you're not allowed to sell murder for hire. Not necessarily because you're not allowed to sell murder for hire, because they're scammers. And if you go to their platform and get scammed, you're not going to go there and buy drugs and buy stolen data. So obviously you want to keep scammers off the platform. So it was a very self-interested sort of thing. But it doesn't matter because this has got out now. And now people are making these little basic scam sites from the dark web saying, yes, we're a hitman cartel, we're an individual hitman, we're hitman services, we're hitman brokerage. And it's just going all over there because the dark web is absolutely full of scams. Mm-hmm. So this is why I started documenting the history of the Silk Road, darknet markets, the dark web scams, and these so-called hitman for hire websites, which are all fake, very obviously fake. They're literally sometimes like email here to get scammed, fill in this form to get scammed. They're not very sophisticated. But that was enough for me to write up and to produce some information, produce a little Rational Wiki article. So I was pleased enough with that and added to my roster of things I've debunked, or like nominally debunked, let's be honest. But little did I know, I was on a collision course with someone's business model at this point, and I'm still stuck there. So, towards the end of me writing this article, I found my Rational Wiki article has been vandalized. Worst crime imaginable. And someone has added in, say, all hitmen for hire sites are scams, apart from Visa Mafia, which is not a scam, and because it has escrow, and give a link. It's like, oh, you vandalized the wiki, you really asked for it now. So I revert his edit, and I go to his site, and I go to this website on this onion link on Tor. And I browse it, and it's some sort of hitman for hire website, but it's a little bit more than previously. You know, there's got a FAQ section, some kind of login or messaging system, some kind of ordering system, lots of information in there, looking much more like a real darknet market and less like a one-page site, click here to get scam type jobby. And I thought to myself, that's interesting that things are evolving. So I did a blog article about it. And I mocked the various stock footage used for the hitman and the spelling mistakes and the fact that it was basically not part of any web of trust, and it was a scam. I'm very, very adept.
How did you know that they were scams? What tipped you off?
I mean, I've done this for years now. I understand how. I mean, if you want to say buy drugs off the dark web, there's the safe way to do it and the unsafe way to do it. The safe way to do it is to find a web of trust. There's trusted forums, trusted links, and they all reference one another from the ClearNet and the Darknet. And within those, you can find actual sites. And the wrong way to do it is to Google it or to use these Darknet search engines, because then you'll just find these scam sites, which will point to the scam sites, and they'll take your money. Okay. It's kind of an online analogous equivalent of trying to buy drugs on the street. You can do it yourself, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get robbed. It's like that, but on the internet. So yeah, I mean, I knew this was a scam site, so I did a blog about it, mocking it, and I thought that would be the end of it. That's a sentence I'm saying after a lot of these things. I thought it would be the end of it. But a few days later, I get a message saying, "Oh yes, we are the administrators of Visa Mafia, and we want to give you a true and honest interview of the website because we are not a scam, and we can prove this." And it's like, yeah, right, whatever. So I didn't really have many scammers come back to me at this point and not to interact with me because I was just debunking stuff and for my own amusement and for the amusement of others. But I said, sure, we'll give an interview. And we went back and forth, and I challenged them on the bad stock photography, the bad Bitcoin advice, the lack of web of trust, the poor reputational points, the non-conformity to darknet market standards. Bear in mind, I've become a darknet market.
So this guy has said to you, I am a hitman. I am a real hitman, and I want to have an interview with you to prove that I am an actual hitman.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Great. Yeah.
Because he's actually, as I found out later, had put a lot of marketing effort into promoting his website at this point. And my blog grew to be the very first site which was debunking his site and saying he was a scam. And so he was at the time threatened by it. So anyhow, this went on for a while. Eventually, he offered to pay me money to take down my blog. I refused, and I just published the exchange.
How much did he offer you?
Sorry. Oh, just like a couple £100 or something. It's like whatever.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I thought I published that. I thought that's the end of it. Like whatever, it's a scam site. I don't care. I've already debunked this. And then a few days passed, and I get I think it was an email or a Reddit DM, I can't remember. And I get in this DM is a video, and in this video, someone's holding up a piece of paper, and it has my blog on it, pirate.london, and the Onion site of the website on a piece of paper. And he pulls up the piece of paper, puts it down, and then fire goes out, and a car is torched like that, and it's held up in the front of it, and an actual car actually being torched. And I'm like, I don't know what to think here, because this is a scam site. There are no assassins, there are no mercenaries, and it's run clearly by some random scammer, and yet now I'm seeing a car torch to intimidate me. The fuck do I do with this? I don't know.
What year is this, by the way? Around
2016.
2016. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, beginning
before AI as well. Yeah, great. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not. It was definitely real. He actually commissioned a few videos like that. Actually, there's you can see for different skeptics, he had people burn cars. So I didn't know what to do. So things kicked off and went all sorts of directions here. I did things like hire a lawyer and say, I don't know what to do here. Have I pissed off the mafia? I began the process of trying to report the case to the Metropolitan Police, that's UK London Police. That never really went anywhere, but I did report it. I later began the process of contacting the FBI. We'll get onto that in a minute. And obviously, it was not going to go anywhere because this is very, very niche. And I literally went to my police station and said, "Hello, someone's intimidated me on the internet by burning a car," and it's like, "Where is it? I don't know. Do you have a car? No." Well, so yeah, I wasn't going anywhere, but I made my report and I spoke to a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, "Yeah, you make the report and they'll do nothing, and that's it." Okay. So then I started to investigate the website itself because this guy had it out for me now at this point. So it's time to order a hit on the website to understand how it works. So I go onto the website and I sign up as Boaty McBoatface because Boaty McBoatface was all the rage in 2016, and I take out a hit on Bob the Builder saying that he said he could fix it but he couldn't. And I'm in the website now. I've placed an order. I placed the hit, and I can see there's like a messaging system and an order system and a payment system. It's like, okay, this is more sophisticated than a typical such website. And I saw, and I got an automatic response saying thank you for your order, and I noticed it had like a little message ID in the URL. I'm like, okay. So there's a messaging system, and the messaging system in the URL has like a message ID called like 123 at the top. What if I change that? Change it to 122. Oh, that's someone else's message. 121. That's someone else's message. That's a message. It's like, okay, the messaging system is not secured. So quickly knock up the scripts, iterate through those numbers. Okay, I've downloaded the entire Hitman for Hire message database. Okay. What do I do next? Well, I went through and I started reconstructing it and putting it back together, etc., and working out what's going on and who was talking to who and what names were distinct and so on and so forth. And I don't like to use this term because it's overused, but I was shocked by what I found. Because there were people like me making troll orders and some test orders and whatnot. But amongst those were people talking for weeks, talking for months, talking about who they want to be killed, where they want to be killed, how much money it will cost, where they need to be at the time, whether they can pay extra money to have the person tortured, whether they can pay extra money to have the person kidnapped, whether they can pay extra money to have the person killed soon. Here's some more money for the bonus. Here's some photos of the person. Here's their photos at work. Here's their home address. Here's their email. Here's their car they drive. And I was like, oh my God, this is a fake Hitman for hire site. This is designed to take people's money. But what I'm seeing here is what the site is designed to do. It is designed to capture people who are legitimately looking to kill someone and scam them and steal their money. But these people are really trying to kill people, and I can see this. And I can see this what's happening all around the world, in the Middle East, in the US, in Australia, in UK, Europe, everywhere. And some of the plots were very short and just had a name and address, and some of them went on for weeks and months. And I was just like mind blown at this point. I just didn't know what to do. This is further complicated by the fact that in the following days and weeks, the website was actually hacked publicly, and much of its information was released publicly, though it was never properly analysed. And that information, it turned out, went to at least the US FBI, and they performed some nominal investigations of it. Investigations which didn't go well, but we'll come back to that in a sec.
What?
So
Why they had all the information? They didn't.
Well, had some of the information for 2016, yeah. So let's talk about one of the cases now, which is this case has been covered like loads of times. There's like literally documentaries about this. I've been in documentaries about this, but it's well known, the case of the murder of Amy Orwine by her scumbag husband Stephen Orwine in Minnesota, US. So let's talk about this case. Again, this is covered in Kill List, the podcast, as well, if people want people to listen to that. So during early 2016 through to mid 2016, username Dog Day God was one of these people who was going on the website for weeks and months negotiating this murder, providing pictures of this woman, Amy Orwine, addresses, times, paying money, etc., and was really determined to have this person killed. And I now know that in late 2016, after Dog Day God realised he was scammed, he took matters into his own hands. He faked Amy's suicide. She should go back a bit. Amy and Stephen were approached by the FBI and said, "Hello, someone's threatening you on the internet from this random leaked file. Who is it?" And Stephen says, "Who? I don't know. Who could it be? Do you know Amy?" I said, "I don't know." "Well, I guess what we should do, we should buy a gun. That'll keep us safe." Now, I have opinions about guns, but this is not a example of guns being used responsibly. So yeah, then the FBI fucked off, having failed to investigate this properly, failed to trace the Bitcoin, failed to even to engage their minds about saying when a random middle-class woman wants to be murdered and has no enemies, who could it be? Well, it's the husband. You have to be Sherlock Holmes to get that one. But they did not do a good job. Not the last time I'll be saying that as well. So, as I said, then later in 2016, after the FBI incident, after failing to hire a hitman on the dark web, Stephen Orwine basically faked his wife's suicide. Fortunately, the investigators did realise that it was a fake suicide. It was him murdering her. There was various stuff like scopolamine in her system, which he had procured off a darknet market, and he got arrested and ultimately sent to jail and sentenced for life, as he should be, because he's a scumbag.
So there was scopolamine in her system, which is a drug.
Yeah, so she was facing drugs and then killed, and it was staged as a suicide. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
I mean, I'm not. If you want, you can just fucking the 911 calls are in the public domain about where you see him on the phone to the police and saying, "Oh my God, my wife just killed herself," and you hear the son in the background saying, "Are you gonna find a new wife, Daddy?" And it's like, "Oh, we'll see, son." It's like, oh, it's fucked. He just murdered him. It's horrible. But he's going full blown. He's a full blown psychopath looking to get out of his marriage. There's a whole religious component here where they're like a lay pastor in his church, and they can't get divorced, and therefore let's turn to murder. That would be better in God's graces and shit like that. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is covered to death. I'm not going to go into it too much right now, because if I spend too much time, I get too upset. But suffice to say, there's plenty of the Orwine case has been done to death and been covered very much. So, anyhow, Stephen does end up going to prison for 20 years, as he should. And there's a whole, kids have to be moved, and there's all sorts of shit going on there. It's horrible. But anyhow, at this point, the police, they rush into action. And the FBI are like, oh, well, we should probably investigate this website properly, the one we didn't look at properly. And so they started Googling the website. Now, you can bear in mind, now, I haven't gone into all the detail because I want to kind of bring things up to the present day. But through 2016, I broke into the website a number of times, extracting data on a number of occasions, including at one point completely extracting the database and shutting down the server. I, at some point, accessed the admin's emails and managed to get into a whole bunch of his systems with the aim of unmasking him and shutting down his operations. I ultimately never succeeded this, though I did get quite far. And but thanks to my blogging and the like, and the journalist betraying my confidence when I did an article, the admins were he was very pissed that me, Chris Monteiro, was basically debunking his website. And so he put into his website source code, this website run by Chris Monteiro. And he wrote a bunch of he had some guy write a bunch of little blogs saying, oh yes, the website was originally created by Chris Monteiro and stuff like that. It all in broken English. Oh shit, I didn't take this thing seriously, because you have to be a complete muppet to believe this stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, after the Orwine case, the FBI and in the UK, the National Crime Agency, which is kind of like the FBI in the UK, leapt into action. And they Googled the website, and whose name do they find? Chris Monteiro's. And so there they were. So there I was on some morning or other, doing an unrelated hacker thing. Generally it was very confusing for me. And the police break down my door and arrest me for incitement for basically murder and running a murder for hire website. Now, go back a bit. I had met Carl Miller, who is the researcher who fronts Kill List, and I had worked.
Which is a podcast, and you should go listen to the podcast after this one.
Exactly. You can hear more about if you're interested about what happened, more about the sort of individual families, dramas, etc. They do very good coverage of that. And he had set me up as an informant for the National Crime Agency. So I had meetings with them, and I was working with them to get them to process data. But mere weeks later, this National Crime Agency, different hand, left hand, right hand here, breaks down my door and arrests me, which I'm very unimpressed by, as you can imagine. And so, I mean, I'm not going into all of that because it was very, very stressful being in a jail cell for a couple of days and having very confused, apparently elite police around me who don't know the fuck they're doing. And so, I hand over all my data to my research wiki, and I give them testimonies, etc. And eventually they realized they fucked up and they let me out. But I was like, well, I'll just wait. Eventually they'll come back and interview me properly, and we'll talk about it properly. That day never came. So we'll come to that. So I'm not going to that, but it was really stressful and horrible. It's not fun being arrested and accused of crimes you didn't commit when you're trying to stop those very crimes, which I was, and that was freaking 7 years ago now, and I'm still at it. However many years ago it was. So what happened after that is the National Crime Agency, in combination with the Bulgarian authorities, did in fact seize the website. They captured a few murder for hire plots, and one woman in Denmark went to prison. There was a high-profile prosecution in the UK, and there was one in the UK which collapsed. And that's all I know about it publicly. That was their about three-month long operation against the website. After we realised that, it's a bit difficult investigating these international cases, can't be bothered to do it anymore. Now, I took a whole year off after that because, as you might, having your door broken down from what is I thought a harmless little hobby here, debunking misinformation. So I moved on my life, and I met a partner, and I kind of decided, right, I say I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to move on. I've been burned here. This is not something I should be doing anymore. So about 28. We're now in 2018 or so, and I'm contacted by a documentary producer in the US, CBS 48 Hours, and they say, "Oh, we're doing a little episode about the murder of Amy Orwine and the whole dark web angle. Do you know anything about that?" I said, "Do I know anything about that? Yes, I believe I do. I tried to stop her being killed, and instead I got myself arrested, and I'm still trying to do the same for other people, and police won't talk to me." Because because the information being obtained illegally apparently, and therefore they've claimed they can't operate it. We can go back on the legalities and the police procedural stuff later. There are some legitimate and some less legitimate objections they have there. So I did that, and I said, "Oh, what's going on the website right now?" I said, "Oh well, last I said, the police were running it, so it can't be going." And I said, "Well, we just been on the website and it seems to be there." It's like, "You're on it, are you?" "Yeah, yeah, and we're getting messages." It's like, "What the fuck?" So I go onto the website. "Oh, still there. And you got messages." So I say, "But okay." Now at this point, I knew everything about the website. I've had the code base, I understand how it works, I've seen the database, I've seen the emails, I've seen the config, I've seen everything about it. So I knew the administration page. So if you know the administration page, you just go there and function as administrator. So I go to the administration page, and what do I see? People trying to kill people, people paying money to kill people, people making serious plots, sharing photos, addresses, cars, times, everything. And I realized this nightmare never stopped. I just took a year off of it, and it's still going. The police didn't disrupt fuck all. So I start collating data, and I send it to CBS, and before I know it, they're making arrests in the US and one in Singapore. And I'm like, okay, then I guess this is what we're doing now. I'm doing the whole I hack the website and the journalists stop people being murdered thing. I guess that's good. So we do that for a while, and they make some TV, and they get nominated for some awards and whatnot. But ultimately, when the TV show's over, I'm still at this. It's like I've still got all these names, and and I'm sorting them and accumulating them, and I'm prioritizing them by like, is there identifiable people, and was there Bitcoin paid, and trying to tie them up, etc. Was this real ID? Was this real address? And doing all of that stuff. And at the time I got to work with the US Homeland Security investigations, and I passed over a bunch of information there. And in the US, I can definitely say some further arrests were achieved through that within the US, though not all of them. So, between CBS and Homeland Security investigations, there were more arrests, and that's good, I guess, because the people are not being murdered. Again, I don't care about arrests. I don't care about people going to prison. I don't want to stop people being murdered because, I think people should not murder people. I think murder is bad, actually.
Agreed.
Surprisingly controversial take, really is. And eventually I get locked out of the website after a change, and so I kind of pack it in like 2019, and then 2020 I get approached by this podcast company, Novel, and who say we want to do a more long form thing about this, going into the cases in depth and really investigating what's not been investigated and blah, 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 blah. And like, yes, fine, let's do a long form thing. Let's deep dive this. Let's actually investigate all these names and find out what's happening here. And we start this up, and then 5 minutes into this, oh yeah, I've got back into the website again. Oh yeah, it's still taking names. Oh yeah, it's more popular than ever. In fact, now there's 2 murder for hire websites and 2 fake escrow websites going on there. There's a marketing portal. There's search engine optimization going on there. There's darknet marketing. It's getting more and more sophisticated, and it's getting more and more people. So from basically 2020 through to what was basically end of 2023, so 3 solid years, I would say. I was collating, tidying, deduplicating. There's various administrative stuff I have to do with the data. Collating all this data and sending it off to these small UK podcasters who are now saying, "Well, what the fuck do we do with it?" And yeah, so this is basically what happens in the podcast series Kill List. Is Kill List these small group of journalists, basically Carl Miller, who is fronting this, and a group, some temporary and long-term researchers and producers, are working out how do we how do we inform people about these people trying to be murdered all around the world? And they tried all sorts of stuff. They tried phoning people, got hung up on. They tried emailing people, no response. They tried
It's
taking things like, they
it's
tried
hard to
taking
break the
things.
news to someone that
It's very
they're
hard to do it, yeah.
like without sounding like some sort of scammer. Like it's difficult.
It's very difficult. I'm not saying that. I mean, I think we know the recipe now. The recipe is you need to have someone talk to them in person, and you can't just phone them up. It doesn't work. That means there's costs associated with that, which makes the whole thing expensive to investigate. But yeah, in the end, they tried taking it via the Metropolitan Police in the UK, and in fact, this ends up going to Interpol, and Interpol sends it on, basically hits the forward button on the email to the police, and then there's no contacts there. It doesn't work, and none of.
Interpol is the International Police Agency, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're more like a police liaison agency. They don't typically do their own investigations. They typically sort of facilitate investigations between agencies. So you and I, we can't report a crime to Interpol. It's not how it works. But if we reported a crime to our local police and it was international, Interpol might facilitate that going to another jurisdiction, for example.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, and but that wasn't going anywhere. So they were like, well, I guess we have to go from being sort of passive journalists sitting there and say, "Cool, look at all these people trying to murder people. Look at all these people trying to murder people. Isn't that newsworthy? Let's write about it." To no, we have to do something about it. And they started becoming me at this point and realizing that actually you can't just see this information and just like report on it. You have to do something about it because of the serious violence, threats, and criminality involved. In the end, they ended up hiring local producers, local to the most serious victims, and they were going around knocking on doors and saying, "Look, like we'll be trying to get in touch with you, but you're not getting back to us. Someone's trying to kill you." And this played out in numerous locations around the world, in the US, in Europe, and I mean, again, I can give you various case studies you want but this, but this happened like dozens of times. If someone knocks on my door, they're very skeptical. They say, "Look, I'm a real journalist, local journalist. Look, where I am. Please have a sit down. Please have a Zoom call from Carl Meller, our journalist." And then Carl would break the serious information, and then they would say, "Well, what do you want to do?" And they'd be like, "Well, get the police involved then, isn't it?" It's like, well, they would say, "We tried," but they don't want to do it. In many cases, the local police would be like, "Well, this sounds like a scam. We don't really think there's a crime going on here, and useless." And then eventually, what happens is the national federal police get involved, and then they're like, "Yeah, this person's paid $10,000 to get someone killed and has been trying to arrange them getting killed for months. This is very much a crime." And so in places like the US, where the FBI took over most of these investigations, they started to be much more effective with all sorts of things, ranging from like dawn raids on houses to, in some cases they pretended to be the hitman and secured further confessions from the would-be killers in order to secure conviction. In some cases, they would try and get into the person's account to do it. They would do everything they could to not only stop these people killing people, to arrest them and make sure they had the strongest possible case they could get against them as well by securing the best evidence. So not just the information I've given, but also history. Was there previous police reports? Were there previous other issues we knew? Could we coerce confessions or partial confessions out of people? And when they got as much as they want, they would get it. And again, I can give you. We can talk to some individual ones if you want.
Yeah, sure. Share with us an individual one.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go with the notorious case of the opioid doctor in Washington State, Spokane. So, this case reaches, I say, my desk. I mean, technically, it reaches my desktop after I'm syncing down the files from my server with the latest murder for hire data in there, and I run my software and I recompile it into a readable thing. And I'm seeing straight away this is going to be a big one. So we're dealing with this case where this person's putting this really sophisticated upfront plot here, not just to kill someone in this case, but they want a woman to be kidnapped, held for several days, injected with heroin, and videos are made so that she basically can be blackmailed with it, and then to be made in a zombified state to return to her husband and drop divorce proceedings. Now, me as a professional detective here, I'm not a professional detective, I was able to infer that was in fact the ex-husband doing this. Did you suspect that? Are you too perhaps a professional detective?
I might be a professional detective. You're right. Yeah, force
Yeah.
her to get. I don't know exactly how he thinks that someone's going to force her to get back with her husband, her ex-husband, or whatever. But
The person's heavily drugged on opioids. It's possible, and you know why? You know what the ex-husband is? He's an opioid specialist. That's right.
okay.
And he
So
deals with treating babies who are born to drug addicted mothers.
So do you think what happens is that she's addicted to opiates, and he thinks that if she comes back to him, he can keep giving her opiates in order to
Yeah,
stay
to
with him?
make it
Okay.
some zombie slave or something. That seems to be his idea because he knows how powerful opiates are, being an opiates doctor, which he is. This is pretty fucked, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And this person is the closest to a kind of Hannibal Lecter type character I've come across, because he does have, for example, a septic tank in his backyard where he puts his lovers into, in a sort of S&M type thing. You know, I mean, I say that there are
Wow.
lurid details, but
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
They didn't
He
cover
also,
that one in the kill list.
yeah, well, I mean, I think there's some coverage in the Daily Beast mentions this, and there's like he also had a falling out at a former place of work where, I mean, not to throw any stereotypes out here, but surgeon god complex, it's something people have heard about, and he basically was falling out with his management there, and he got fired from his job as well. And but he's fine. He's put in two orders. One is to drug and kidnap the wife, and two, to break the hands of his surgeon boss.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like, okay. So I was literally able to do it. I'm not usually able to infer from these orders straight away who the person is, but in this case, I was.
Yeah, that gives some clarity there as well.
Yeah.
If the wife wasn't enough, breaking the hands of his boss. That,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and he's paying shitloads of money. I mean, in the end, he pays up like something close to $60,000 for all these kidnapping, assault services, etc. Now we know later he was doing this whilst he was on holiday in Mexico with his new lover, and he had his new lover sign a contract in blood in order to obey the master no matter what's happened. He knew what he was doing here. Complete psychopath. And fortunately, when he came back from his holiday in Mexico, he was met at the airport by the FBI, thanks to what I sent over through novel to them, and they managed to. He plays dumb at first, saying, "Oh yeah, I was what did he say? Something I was buying some steroids off the dark web or whatever, because he thought maybe his payment was traced." Eventually, like, no, we have the messages. Stop this shit. We have the messages and the payments. And but even in this case, when this guy is one of the most fucked up people I've interacted with, the most people I feel is most evil, most deserves to be in prison. Even then, this is not easy, because after this, he goes home and he tries to kill himself with overdose of pills. And I'm he's a scumbag. He's a terrible, terrible person who tried to drug kidnap his wife and break his boss's hands, and is a terrible person. And yet, I'm one's feeling bad here. Well, I am, but he survived, and so I don't have to feel too bad anymore in this case. He's felt survived. The FBI used his thumbprint to get into his case. In his case were his credentials for his website. They logged into the website. They saw exactly the same messages that I'd send them, and they got him. And he's gone to prison for 8 years, I think.
Doesn't feel like enough. 8 years feels a little bit scant.
I mean, in this case, it
okay.
wasn't technically attempted murder. It was merely
That's
assault
true.
and
That's true.
kidnapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say most likely to get a TV dramatization as this guy is fucked.
Yeah.
That's one case, particularly dramatic. And most cases maybe they're not quite as dramatic like that, but they play out in a similar vein. It's usually a husband trying to kill a wife, or wife trying to kill a husband, or a family dispute. And there's usually a years-long backstory we don't know about it, to do with contention or divorce or previous police reports or previous allegations or actual cases of abuse, etc., which then accumulates in the attempted murder on the website, and then leading to what is usually, frankly, 1 to 2 years or so of battles with police and the courts to secure a conviction, which mostly works out but doesn't always, and it varies by jurisdiction. I mean, again, we can talk about individual cases here, and it's personally, I feel I'm very conflicted talking about these cases, right? Because there are dozens and dozens of them now. I think people have been. I think I've got jail time approaching almost 200 years now, and so about, I don't know, off the top of my head, about 40 arrests, 30 convictions, including jail time. And we can talk about some of them, if whichever style or type you like to do. But from my perspective, the minute they make it into the hands of the police, and the police are taking it seriously, and the police are like moving in, they've got a culprit, and particularly if the person's been informed, my job's done. At that point, it's in the hands of the police, or sometimes the journalists, to deal with it. I have done my part, and I can focus on the cases which are not being done, and which are continue to outnumber the ones that have been completed. So I want to give you an example of one which we did attempt to report, but I was too late. Okay. And so there are much more cases like this case of Ron Ilg, where we get the scumbag after years of abuse and years of nonsense. We get him, and he's no longer a threat to society, right? So that's good, as far as I can say. But I'll give you a case in again, US, Illinois. So we had this case, and this wasn't covered in Kill List, and I think it needs to be covered at some point. So I'm just going to talk about it without giving names, but I think this needs to be covered. So there's this case in Illinois, and this person comes to the website, and he says, I want this woman to be kidnapped and sold into sex slavery, and I also want to be arranged to get myself a passport so I can flee the country. So it turns out, basically, this guy had a partner. She maybe cheated on him, or they broke up or something like that, and he was basically wanted custody of the kids and was going to flee the country. So he starts giving this very involved story about what can you do, what service can you do, what people traffickers will you send it to, what will it cost, what's the difference, what can I do to basically ruin this young woman's life. He would say,
and the scammers are just saying, "Oh, we can do it all." Of course, we have access to everything, passports, anything you want. Yeah,
of course they do, because they'll say yes to all to get money. And and he's sending pictures, including intimate pictures of the women over. And I'm watching this stuff go through, but in this case, he doesn't provide any names or addresses that I can trace. So he is paying money, but I knew this guy's serious. So I shared this novel. I say, look, this is a very serious case coming through, but I guess you don't want to send it to the FBI yet, because they don't have a name or address, so they wouldn't be able to necessarily know which state to run it. And they said something like, yeah, I guess we'll wait for that. So I went on a bit, and eventually he did give the address of this woman he wanted kidnapped in I think Nevada it was, and so I quickly told Novel, and Novel quickly told the FBI. However, we found out a couple months later that merely a few days after this information was sent to the FBI, we were too late. This man, after having failed to procure kidnappers for his ex-wife, tracked down his ex-wife, killed her, and then killed himself. And we were too late in this case. And this was this was tough for me, and it was also tough for people on the podcast team, because we had made a very reasonable decision to wait a bit in order to make the police's life easier, just wait a few days. And that wait had, by some measures, cost a young woman her life. And that's not, I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible that an action or inaction could, that by that much difference can make the difference between life and death. And I don't dwell on that case too much, because I've succeeded far more than I failed like that, or I failed like in the Amy Orwine case. But this is why I get focused not on what I can and will talk about the case where I've been successful, but I'm much more focused in my mind of where there hasn't been an effective police report, where the person hasn't been informed, where there hasn't been an effective investigation, where that person is still in danger. Because that's where I feel is more important than, let's go through the lurid details about these people who got arrested for their esoteric crimes. So I'm very forward-thinking in that respect, but from a true crime entertainment point of view, people just want to hear about the people who've been arrested and their complicated love and family lives and what led to it. And we can go back to some of that. But it's not my focus. My focus is not on what's been done. It's focused on what's yet to be done.
Wow. And what is yet to be done?
Well, of the kill list, which I have basically sorted and enriched over the years, there are about 750 names which are completely uninvestigated that I'm aware of.
And they haven't been told? Have they been informed?
No. So the FBI got their hands on the majority, nearly all the payer cases. So they have all the payer cases in the US, and they've had a relatively good result there. Of those cases, they disseminated them internationally. For example, to places like Germany. In Germany, the German Federal Police were very effective. They've had about 5 or 6 arrests. What's quite interesting there is that we were going after this case in Germany of this. It turned out to be a gay love triangle of a streamer. So they thought, well, that's good. That'll sell. And we're just watching the stream and thinking, so he wants to kill him. Oh, but he's got really good gaming skills there as well. It's like, is it a gamer rival? And it's like we're just watching him live, thinking, well, what should we do? It's really, really surreal type stuff. Anyway, in the end, they used the usual thing. Let's hire a local journalist, knock on the door, blah blah blah. And eventually, and then there was a whole incident there whereby the local journalist became under suspicion from the local police, and that became legal representation. That was a whole thing. But in the end, basically, they effectively worked the case. That novel worked the case with the German federal authorities, and then the Germans are like, oh yeah, we've got like a dozen of these cases come over from the US. We better look into them. And so, thanks to pressure from Novel on the German authorities, the Germans started sorting out their stuff and getting a bunch of arrests too. And they're all credited like, oh yes, the FBI sent them this information. This was investigated by the FBI. It's like, joke organizations here. You got this information from Novel, the podcast company, got it from me. And you're embarrassed that you didn't actually read your inbox from the FBI. Is what's going on there. Hey, better than nothing. FBI pretty effective. German Federal Police very effective. Austrians moderately effective. And I can rate different police agencies around the world how effective they are at their investigations. Some of them are incredibly effective. Singapore good. Australia all right actually. We can talk about the case in Canberra, for example. Did you read that?
Tell us about it.
All right. So, case in Canberra. So, what do we have here? We have what do I see first of all? I see a case of someone coming on to the website, literally saying, "I want these people killed, names, addresses, yada yada, so I can get my inheritance." It's like, okay, you've just told you who it is. People do that sort of stuff. It's like,
okay,
who could it possibly be?
That's the equivalent of saying this website is made by Chris Monteiro, by the way. But
people do it. Yeah.
Right,
so they come literally saying, "I want these people killed so I can get my inheritance." I wonder who it is. Spoilers: it was the daughter. And So there's a whole back and forth with like, oh, I can afford to give this much money and I can give this much money. And eventually I think she paid something like, I don't know how much it was in there. I forgot. I had to look it up. But she paid a couple of thousand Australian dollars for the down payment on the murder. But it turned out she literally robbed the house of her parents for cash, which she then turned into Bitcoin to give to these scammers to have the parents killed. Now, the parents, who I will not name because there's a whole court order against not naming them, and I don't need to get in trouble, are relatively wealthy business people in Canberra and have a fair bit of money. And this young woman, as far as I'm aware, was, if not a druggie, certainly a down and out and not doing well for herself, and felt that she reached the end of her rope, and so well, I'm not very sympathetic, frankly, but yeah, tried to have her parents killed for the inheritance. It took like a good 2 and a bit years going through the Australian courts from the arrest to her conviction. I think in the end she only got like time served, about 3 years, 2.5 years, which I guess is okay. I mean,
It's not okay. That's not okay at all. You're trying to kill 2 people. I don't know why it would be okay.
Well, okay, this is what okay, all right. So I'm going to give my opinions here. Now, if I say my opinions here, like don't feel you can't challenge me on this, right? Because
Sure.
These are my opinions. I'm not set out to put people in jail. I'm not set out to get people arrested. I just want to stop people being murdered, right?
Yeah.
Because like that's kind of what you got to do to live in a society, right? That's how I see it. And one of the observations I've made, which I'm not sure I agree with or not, is that when it comes to actually perpetuating real life violence in person, women don't do it as much as men.
That's
Men
true. Yep.
are more violent. When it comes to utilizing this website to arrange murder for hire, women are well represented at perhaps 40% of people. But
I think historically the most common murder weapon for women has been poison.
Exactly, yes, in an indirect means which doesn't use violence. And so similarly, this website, relatively speaking, appeals to women, or at least, not as much as men, but like 40% or so, which is very, very high. Yeah. And so when these women go to prison, I'm a bit more conflicted than when the men go to prison, because I don't really feel most of these women were actually violent or going to commit violence, and thus was it as essential for them to go to prison as all this? But that's a matter of opinion, and that's coming from me saying I didn't set out to put people in prison. That's not what I want. There was in the UK in the county of Norfolk in England, there was a woman, a mother of 5, I think, who became absolutely obsessed with her co-worker. Who were working together at some factory or other, and she was stalking him, and they once got together in a car, but they were both married, etc. Eventually, the stalking and the messages became too much, so he had to move jobs. But she moved jobs with him, and it was really, really stalkerish, really, really bad. In the end, he started taking legal proceedings against her, and eventually, so she's like, well, if I can't have him, no one can. So she paid £20,000 to have him killed. And she's in jail now, and that's great. But she has 5 kids, and they don't have a mum now. And I just don't. I'm
going to guess she wasn't Mother of the Year anyway.
No, that is true. That is true. And I'll you can. Please feel free to share your opinion on this. I'm just telling you how I feel about these things. I am not happy about putting people in prison where I don't feel the people were what I consider a danger to society, because all I want to do is make this not my problem anymore. But suddenly I'm a tool of the state, it seems.
I think you're doing the right thing. I think I would say there's a multifaceted reason. There's many reasons for prison, right? One of them is a deterrent. One of them, like you're saying, is you just get the person off the street so they're not committing crime on the street anymore. Yeah, but in terms of a deterrent, like these people are being arrested, and then if you let people get away with crimes, other people will commit crimes. Like they will say, okay, there's no punishment for hiring a hitman. Real hitmen do exist. I don't think there are many of them, but real hitmen do exist, and so we want to punish people for hiring hitmen, I would say. And good. I mean, I think they should be in jail. A stalker. I mean, a stalker is even then that's one step further than just talking to someone on the internet. That is a physical manifestation of something. And stalkers, at least for male to female violence, stalkers with, I heard this crazy statistic. If a man, I don't know about women, if it goes the same way, but if a man stalks a woman and then threatens violence on her, he's like 50% likely to kill her. So like, yeah, stalkers are a real life manifestation. So she should be in jail. I mean, she should, yeah. But I think you're doing the right thing personally.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it a counter example. We have this case in Bath in England as well. And this young woman, again, was targeted on this website to be, here's where she goes jogging, here's her address, here's a place where you can have her killed, etc. Turned out it was the brother-in-law, and the brother-in-law was basically stalking her. He had gone as far as installing hidden cameras in her bathroom and such. This is covered in one of the episodes. And there's a whole complicated web of family drama, denials, and such. Eventually, he did go to prison, but she had to like spend about 2 years advocating for herself, lobbying her MP, lobbying the police, off the back of what Novel discovered, just to get to take action. And he's in the same country. I think he was up in Manchester or something like that. But yeah, that's like a really typical nasty stalker case. But yeah, the police response has been incredibly variable, from being like, yes, we're going to jump into action, dawn raids, get confessions, to, is it really a crime? Do we really care? And these can be basically identical crimes as far as we're concerned. And so, this we move into.
I would love. Oh, go on. I would love to hear a list of the best police and some of the worst police as well. Like, what's your list?
Well, once we put pressure on the German police, they were very good. The podcasts hate it though, because the privacy laws in Germany are such that when someone gets arrested, the names and details are heavily redacted. It's always like a man, 35-year-old from this town. They don't give the details, and you can't look into them and go and interview them. So it's really annoying from a podcast point of view. I mean, the case in the German case with the streamers and the gay love triangle, it turned out that it was an ex-partner of the man who previously tried to buy a witch's curse, and which didn't manage to get them back together.
Wow,
and
that's weird.
When Witch's curse failed, you moved to the next legitimate thing, which is a dark web hitman to kill him.
Some real geniuses are using this website. You can tell.
Oh yeah, including bloody IT professionals as well. Which just like blows my mind. I mean, there was the case of the I think it's the Milan IT manager who in Italy. He tried to kill his ex-girlfriend, not kill, sorry. Throw acid in her face and have her put in a wheelchair, and paid something like $5,000 for that or something. And he served, Europol quite rightly made a big thing. Look, we got this person. He's a scumbag. He went to prison. He actually got out on a technicality last year because in Italy, it's not considered a crime to hire a hitman on the dark web unless you pay the money and give the date, and give a specific date and time. If you don't give a specific date and time, not considered a crime. So we've had 2 cases in Italy collapse on that technicality, which is bullshit.
All right, Italy, guys, get your shit together. Let's work on this a little bit. All right.
Yeah. So
talk to your government.
Not great over there. Germans take it very seriously. Swiss, once they're done, we're getting this Swiss case covered in Kill Us podcast about a woman going through a nasty divorce with a husband, and she was like, I don't care, whatever, I'm going to dinner with my neighbor. Where's your neighbor? Oh, he lives next door to my ex-husband. It's like, what? The one who just paid $5,000 to kill you, one who killed $10,000 to kill you. Oh, I don't care, whatever. And eventually they raid the guy's house and find he's got a bunker full of illegal guns and like zip ties and bags and stuff like that, and is literally planning to kill her. And she doesn't give a fuck, because she's like, woman of a certain age has so little fucks to give, I guess.
Yeah, she was pretty badass. She was stoic.
Yeah, And so, eventually, when the Swiss police were done, like threatening Novel and threatening to sue Novel and stuff like that, and calling them scammers, they did in fact investigate him, and he's in jail now, which I think he should be.
Better late than never. All right.
Yeah, yeah. But it's the story of doing this. I mean, the story of Kill List and the story of everything I've done by myself. It's not just a story of like getting people arrested for nasty crimes. It's a story of bloody navigating the policing system, navigating the national level police, local police, understanding the legal context, understanding what might work, who's the expert you need to speak to, how do you phrase this in a way which works. It's a hell of a lot of work, frankly, which is, it's very difficult to get the police to understand this. And other than when we briefly had a central operation running out of the US, which was quite good for the FBI cases. It's all done on a case by case basis. There's no we're passing to a central team who can trace the Bitcoin and put together a profile and vouch for it and then send it off to the local investigators. That doesn't exist. Every single case you're going in more or less from scratch. And okay, I've got a bit more of a reputation now in terms of I've got an arrest record. These cases have held up in court. These cases have turned out to be very serious. These cases have turned out to be very important. But you're still having to persuade local police, national police, local police again, victims having to be their own advocate tremendously to get these done. And I got a day job. This is not. I don't get paid to do this. This is when you consider my legal fees and various other expenses in doing this cost me money to do.
So you've made no money or almost no money doing this?
I lost shitloads of money doing this. But
you would have made more money if you had taken down the rationality article and when the scammer offered you money in the first place.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, this is by many metrics ruined my life. But I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because no one else can. Now, you could say, just a little aside here, so obviously this is the scammers. We haven't talked much about them. And we did, there were a bunch of arrests in Romania in, I think it was 2022. And that was precipitated by all our investigations, led to, I think, the US putting pressure on the Romanian authorities. And they arrested about 5 people behind a website, and it was quite well televised.
Iran was also behind this?
No, Romania.
Oh, Romanian authorities. Okay, yeah. Yep.
And but as far as you're aware, they were released a few days later. So it was all political posturing, and the website was never even interrupted in that period. But what I say about them, which are fucking scumbags, they've had this data for years, but what they go around, as these people make these kill list orders and come in, they delete the messages as they go along, because they don't need to hold all this evidence of them basically inciting murder and encouraging people to do murders, because it will one day be used against them in the course of law, as it bloody well should be, right? However, because I've been in the website for so long collecting the messages, and the scammers have been deleting the messages, this means only I have the messages, only me. It's not like if you arrest the scammers, they hand over all their names, they delete them, only I have it. So this pushes me in a uniquely frustrating position where I personally have the obligation to keep going with doing this, because there is no one else. No one else has the data. No one else can do it. Yeah. And so but I've been stuck in this for what's it been, 7-8 years now? I can't remember how long it's been. It's been a long time. And I'm still at it. I'm still trying to work out what my next phase is. I've been experimenting with private investigators, trying to increase my profile to see if I can get some more donations on that.
Where do you accept donations?
Oh, I've got on my blog, pirate.london. I've got a little blog up there. I accept PayPal and Monteiro cryptocurrency. Give
Chris money, please, everyone. He needs money. If you are, just donate to him. He's doing God's work, saving people's lives, literally. This is probably an EA cause area, effective altruism.
I mean, maybe it is. It depends what. I've had some discussions about that with some people in the less wrong community about how effective is this in terms of lives per saved and whatnot. And it's moderately effective. I mean, I would say in a Western country, I would say when you you consider things like local journalist fees or local investigators, you can probably get someone in these major cases arrested for like I'm switching to all the currencies here for about £1,500. So that's not bad, if I think. Though it does vary because some of the cases are not as major. Many of the cases, no one paid any money, so it's harder to trace Bitcoin and to get hard IDs. So those cases are not as easy to do. But then there is the debate over. Well, this is my view, frankly. I'll give my personal view. I don't want to live in a world where someone who pisses you off on the internet can have you killed. The very idea that you can anonymously hire someone to kill anyone is a very upsetting idea to me. I see it as analogous to like living in a world where you're concerned about terrorism, right? It's not a case of that you're very likely to be a victim of terrorism. You're probably very unlikely. But the anxiety it can cause you when you fly, when you travel, when you visit public places, etc., can have a damaging effect both on the individual and on society. And we just need to look at the effect on civil liberties, the effect on racism, effect on wars. The second order effect of terrorism has been tremendous, even though the direct effect has been relatively small. And similarly, I don't want to live in a world where even a small amount of people can be killed anonymously on the internet, because if that were to start happening, the second order effects on society would be terrible. And it would lead to, it would lead to paranoia, more crackdown and surveillance on the internet, more crackdown on cryptocurrency than there is already. And I think it would be very bad for individuals in society that we to live in that world. I don't want to live in that world.
Absolutely. So tell me more about the scammers. What do you know about them? What would you like to happen with them?
Well, I've spent this podcast saying how I'm opposed to murder. Actually, I have to say, but these scammers have fucked with me a lot, and well. So let's talk about him. The guy who initially found the site goes by the alias of Yura, and he's based in Romania.
How do you spell that?
Yura. Mm-hmm. I know that because he once uploaded a screenshot of his desktop to the server accidentally, and he was on Google.ro. And also I have the IP address evidence of him coming from Romania as well. And one time when I hacked his accounts and he thought I was the FBI, and I interviewed him as the FBI, or so he thought, not that I claimed to be the FBI. He basically said, "Look, I'm basically a scammer. I used to be involved in carding, aka credit card fraud and identity theft, etc. But I didn't enjoy it much. But I realized there was a niche in sort of dark web scams doing murder for hire because none of the websites were credible. So I commissioned this programmer to build this website for me, which I now maintain. And just, please don't arrest me. Just arrest my customers, please." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I think Chris Monteiro is behind the website." He said to me, but he doesn't realize it's me. And I'm like, "No, stop this bullshit."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, okay, but this Chris Monteiro, he's a pretty bad guy." Like, anyhow, that was like the only time I had what I consider a genuine interview with him. Okay. And that was back in 2016. In the meantime, he's come up with all sorts of bullshit. He's trying to hire people to do voice impressions for him, and they screw up. I've got this great video of this guy he hired from Alabama, and he's wearing a hoodie saying, "Hi there, my name's Yura from Piece of Mafia." It's like, really? No one's taking this shit seriously. That never picked up. But it's quite funny. But yeah, he's been going out for years, and at some point or other, he created a franchise. He's created little spin-off sites. He's sold the code to other people who've run copies of the website, and he's tried to create franchise agreements. He tried to set himself up as a boss now, whereby he hires other people to sort of run the websites and run the escrow, but he kind of manages the overall setup of it. So he's got a bunch of minions running it, many of whom were arrested during the Romanian raids. But yeah, he's still at large. Apparently,
How much money do you think he's made from this?
millions and millions. It depends how much. Because bear in mind, he's accepting Bitcoin. He's been accepting Bitcoin since 2016. A lot has happened in the world of Bitcoin since 2016, and if he didn't cash much out, yeah, he'd be a multi-millionaire from this. I wish I'd bloody done that. You know, if I forget what to say, I wish they'd done that. But yeah, he'll be.
I mean, it couldn't be that. Like, how many like multimillionaires are there in Romania? Like, I mean, I know there are probably a lot, but like, it's what in the hundreds and the thousands. I mean,
Romania is a hotbed
surely
of cybercrime,
thousands.
to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cyber criminals there. You know, there's good education and bad jobs, and there's a network effect there where people are quite likely to turn to cybercrime and the like. So, I mean, he still has to launder his money. You know, I've heard that he spent his money and he bought a restaurant, for example, and then he's laundering his money through that.
How did you hear that?
I heard this through. Haven't credited him much. You can. I worked with a journalist in the early days called Eileen Ormsby. She's an Australian journalist from Melbourne, and she was involved at the early days of this, working with the website, conducting interviews with Yura, corresponding with him on and off until he got all fretty and rapey with her, and so she stopped that. But she got a book or two out of it. You know, writing about the Orwine case, writing about the BC Mafia website. She was always hoping that she'd be the first person to get an interview with him and tell the real story of Yura. But she tried to persuade him to come over to be interviewed for CBS 48 Hours, and he bailed at the last minute because because he saw one of the arrests by CBS, and he knew that the website was infiltrated at the time, so he pulled out. So it's debatable whether he would ever showed his face. The guy should be in prison for massive fraud and for multiple counts of incitement to murder, and I do not like him and wish him ill.
I'm a little bit stuck here because it seems like a lot of these people were going to murder someone anyway, and so he's just taking their money, and that's one way I can frame it.
Yes, in some cases you can definitely argue that he's just a random scammer scamming people for money, and it has no effect, positive or negative, beyond taking their money. He's even argued that, when you take these would-be murderers' money, you're depleting their resources and making them less likely to murder. Now, I disagree with this because of the multiple occasions I've seen where these people have had complicated backstories, accumulating them and then trying to murder someone, and then in some cases going on to murder someone. And I've always seen it as a point of escalation, not de-escalation. And again, just take the gender element for a minute. Most women wouldn't go around and try and kill a man because men are stronger and more dangerous, and therefore they're less likely to take that point of escalation. Where given this site, then they do. And now there are many women in prison, whereas you could argue many men maybe would have done it regardless, because men are more violent and dangerous and such. And there is a discussion to be had there, whether to what extent the website accelerates or exacerbates pre-existing tendencies, or doesn't, or even doesn't. For my evidence, it's something that accelerates and exacerbates.
That's interesting because so you're saying like the women might not have committed any crimes at all, and then so he's actually helping to put women in jail that wouldn't have gone to jail otherwise, which is a net
wouldn't have been
harm.
Wouldn't have been violent otherwise.
Yes, well, violent is okay. Wouldn't have tried to pay for violence at least. Yep, I see.
But this is debatable. Don't take my word for it. This is how it is.
No, it's good. It's interesting to think about. It's also I suppose the act of committing to something, like paying money down, does it creates psychologically it creates a next step. Yeah. You are now committing to the murder. You might not have, if there wasn't a hitman online, you might not have paid the money and committed to something. And now there's this idea like I can't go back. Yeah. I have to go through with it. So yeah, fair enough. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to say what would have happened, but
It is.
that's a good point. That's a very good point. You've clearly thought about this a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he's had the opportunity to take his information and get a funnel to the police, and he's got plenty of money to hire intermediaries for it and get these cases investigated, and he hasn't done it. So he's had years to do this. That's years to prove that he doesn't give a fuck about the people who get murdered. He doesn't give a fuck about these serious cases that he could do something about. But does he take his information? Does he put it in a special file? And does he keep this file in case he's get arrested? No, he deletes it. And only I have the copy.
So, what do you think your next steps are? I mean, yeah, are you going to try to raise money to do
Well, I'm
more
not.
outreach
Yeah,
for victims?
I'm nominally asking for some money. I don't know how much I'm going to raise because I'm starting to do now. I'm starting to do more media interviews now. With Kill List basically wrapping, my exclusivity clauses have dropped, so I'm able to do this podcast because I haven't been able to do this up to now.
And I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. So I'm doing a bit of media, a bit of self promotion, talking about this. So yeah, I'm on, obviously, it doesn't hurt to put out the old pan and ask for some money. Ultimately, I mean, I've looked around for like NGOs to adopt me, so they could create a small little operation to do it. But it's very, very difficult. So you look around saying, oh, I'd like some money for fighting crime, please. And people are like, oh, do you mean like money for victim support or something like that? It's like, no, actual fighting crime. It's like there are no private entities, to my knowledge, who do this. I mean, I was looking at me and the novel crew. I always use the analogy of we sort of assembled Team America World Police here. A bunch of Muppets trying to run around saving the world here whilst kind of leaving a bit of chaos and devastation in our wake, only in terms of like broken families and stuff like that. But it felt far more amateurish than it should. This should be executed by probably a national agency in conjunction with Interpol or Europol or something like that. But ultimately, there's not interest. If I was fighting terrorism, an anti-terrorism people would adopt me. If I was fighting drugs, some of the anti-drug company would adopt me. Drug enforcement would adopt me. The fact I'm merely stopping relatively middle-class people trying to murder each other, it doesn't fall into like gang violence or anything like that. It's just its own thing. I'm not fighting supervillains a la international rescue or whatever it is that Mission Impossible is. I'm just a bloke trying to stop normal people murder normal people, and it's a gap in the market. So yeah, I would love to be adopted by a law enforcement agency or NGO, if I were to, or prospectively, if I were to get sufficient grants, I would probably form my own charity or NGO to do this myself. But it takes a lot of money to do that, to actually hire people. And in the case of where do you hire people, and so on and so forth. But I've been trying this for years, and maybe for example, there may be more media opportunities will come along, and I can use some of the media resources to do further investigations. But it's beyond a certain point, it can't be just ethical to keep just doing investigations through the media. Ultimately, this is a police or police-like operation, and so I don't really want to keep just like. You can sort someone's situation out and get people arrested, but then dragging them through the media saying, oh yeah, this is when they started stalking me, this is when they started doing abusive to me, this is when they started threatening me, blah, blah, blah. This is how the police were terrible, and this is how it what to do, and eventually led to things. And forcing someone to have to go through all of that just to basically fund the investigation is not ideal.
Not at all.
For people who want to listen to Kill List, it probably is ideal. You can get to hear about all these people and their fucked up situations which accumulated in murder plots against them, and and typically success in stopping the people. But for me, I just don't want this to be my responsibility anymore. But without getting the investigations done, I can't discharge the responsibility. And so I will do anything to get rid of it. Work with media, work with the police, work with NGOs, whomever. But yeah, I'm still struggle.
So you're saying the police, but like if one country's police force adopts you or like adopts this case, other countries won't be alert. Like, I mean, do you expect, like, if the
Yeah, let's talk
FBI
about that.
took this? Yeah, yeah. Go on.
So international policing is hard, especially where there aren't pre-existing working groups, for example. So like when someone sees this darknet market, right, for drugs and stolen data, there are groups in the West, in the Five Eyes, for example, whose job is just to get information, disseminate it amongst the Five Eyes groups. So, you know, you get a bunch of drug dealers, all the drug dealers in like Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, UK are gonna get all the information straight away because they got a working group working who work that, for example, and they've needed it, and that's very effective like that. Whereas, you know, setting up a work, and there's lots of working groups again for drugs, terrorism, trafficking, gangs, etc. And that's how they kind of do international. They do it through these collaboration, these fixed groups of work between allied countries. That's kind of the gist of it. But yeah, there is no without that. For example, in the last year and a half or so, we believe this website has been operated by the police, possibly by the UK intelligence or UK police. There's evidence of this from arrests in Austria, in the US, and Switzerland, and such. So we've seen fewer arrests than when I was working on novel, but some. And we can infer the information has come out of the UK and been disseminated, and in a few cases they've been very effective. But we can also infer by the fact they've been less effective than novel that the police are actually bad at this. They don't actually, you know, they get an issue in another country, they hit forward to a mailbox, maybe chase the person, then say job done. They don't contact the victim, they don't contact the low people, they don't chase it up, they don't make sure the people understand the issues, they either prosecute, understand the risk, understand the history. That's not their job as far as I'm concerned. They basically hit international referral form, tick, 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 referred, maybe one or two follow-ups, there we go. That's their job done. So the police, I have to repeat this, they are bad at this. They are worse at this than I and Novel have been at doing the international investigations. So even if I were to be adopted by an international investigations agency from an incumbent group, that wouldn't be enough. Because so ultimately, directly reaching out to the people or close to as possible has been proven to be the most effective way to do this. And in the absence of any known body which does this, you know, I will continue to basically formulate this with journalists as needed. Or if I were to raise enough money, I would do this myself. That's the only way I can clear the so-called kill list. I don't know how else to get rid of it.
I wonder if a team of volunteers would help you. I mean, volunteers are also less effective than, you know, paid people oftentimes, but you might be able to gather up an international team
Possibly.
of volunteers.
So let's talk about it. I've had some experience with volunteers, and I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but it hasn't been tremendously effective. So, for example, I had a young woman reached out to me from Pakistan, for example, who saw me on a YouTube documentary, and she said, "Hey, you know, have you got any cases in Pakistan?" I said, "Yes, I do," and I had a bit of a call with her, and eventually I sent over the cases in Pakistan, and she met one of the women and interviewed her, and that was it. Didn't go anywhere. Now, we haven't even touched on the effectiveness of the policing in the developing world versus the developed world. That's a whole thing, right? But it didn't go anywhere. Similarly, I had someone reach out to me saying, "Oh yeah, I'm in Florida in the US, and I've got connections in the in law enforcement. I can help you out." I said, "Brilliant! Yeah, I've got this major case in Tampa, which has not been investigated. Can you help?" It's like, "Yeah, I can help. Here's an email address." It's like, no, that doesn't help me. You know, the effort needed is to understand the data, understand the things, and spend extensive hours of time physically going down to the police station, briefing and rebriefing the police about the seriousness of the issue, and without having necessarily involved the victim. Or you can involve the victim, but then do I want to send volunteers out to see the victims or not? What if they somehow get involved and blackmail them or upset them? I don't know. Maybe that's ethical. I don't know. or and then you have to brief, and then once they've finally taken a police report, you have to chase it, find out what the status is, get it referred to national police. Have you traced the Bitcoin yet? Do you understand it? Have you briefed the victim? And what happens is when these cases go to police, by the way, is that they go to police. This is my experience from both the US and I think the UK. If someone wants to kill you, the police will knock on your door and say, "Hello, madam. We've received credible information that someone is threatening your life." And you say, "Oh my God, how terrible! What about it?" And they'll say, "We can't tell you anymore." You're like, "What?
Yep.
What?" And that's what they do. And people are left in limbo for a year and a half whilst an investigation goes down, wondering who the fuck's trying to kill me. And
if I wanted to create agoraphobics, if I wanted to make someone agoraphobic, that is how I would do it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And so I'm frankly, I don't get me on. I'm just trying to stop people being murdered here, right? I don't want to cause people to be psychologically tortured for a year and a half. And yet that is the official police procedure in some cases. All the more reason that I'd rather work with people who are more empathetic, in this case journalists, who are able to contact the police and the victims and help doing victim advocacy and work all the way through it. So that's most ethical. Showing the other side of those, I had a case in Scotland where, again, the police hadn't done anything. So I won't name them, there's no point naming them, but a journalistic agency went up to Scotland and they knocked on this person's door, say, hi sir, just want to know, we've got this evidence that someone tried to kill you, here's the messages. And the person was like, oh yeah, it's that guy. 2 days later. So it turns out the guy went round to the other guy's house and beat him up after this, and it's like, okay, so there's not going to be a prosecution there. And like, I don't really want to cause that. But you're getting in, you can be in the same room where like the husband tried to kill the wife and trying to interview these people separately. It's really difficult.
The guy kind of deserved to be beat up though, didn't he?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so worried about that.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
I don't like being responsible for violence. But,
no. Yeah, but, you're right. You're right. Absolutely.
It's really delicate doing this stuff. And I find the police to be a very blunt instrument when they even operate, if they do operate. I find you can't just interact with the victims because it is a policing matter in some cases. You need to do both. But you need informed consent. I'm not saying, again, going at your point.
Journalists are the best for this. It sounds like journalists are the best for this because they're making money when they follow up on a story and chase the police and have these victim stories and have the stories that the police aren't working and they're not doing anything and we need to push the police. So
it's true.
Yeah.
But then journalists are acting like, I don't know, investigators, which is great. But the whole thing is very expensive when it comes down to it, If you can't get a good podcast episode out of it, it's not going to get investigated. And that's all very well for these cases, but I just want to discharge my responsibility and not do it. I'm not saying it's impossible to work with volunteers, but I haven't found a way or a framework to do it. And the level of management I would need to put in to do it would be quite significant. And beyond a certain point, I'd just rather pay private investigators. I don't know.
So I want to swing back to, I asked you which countries were doing well and which weren't. And I live in Australia, so I want to know, how are the Australian, you said they were doing the Australian police?
Well, okay, so I can specifically tell you what's happened with the Australian case, right? One, Eileen Ormsby being investigated one case in Melbourne, and it was a case of where someone in India wanted to kill women, probably over a job dispute or something like that. You can ask her if you want to follow up on that. So that wouldn't lead to anything, but the woman was at least informed about the threat, and she kind of knew who it was. The police couldn't do anything because the person was back in India, and at least there was a degree of closure there, a degree. But in this case of the Canberra, the woman who tried to kill her parents for the inheritance, after the initial arrest and prosecution triggered by Novel, I worked directly with the Canberra authorities on this, giving them the original evidences, talking them through it, etc., and in helping them with their prosecution. In the end, ultimately, young woman pled guilty, though I would have had to testify had she not. And And basically I was doing this, well, one, to secure the conviction, and two, say, look, Canberra police, please can you now disseminate all the Australian cases? So, I helped them as much as I could, and eventually I said, yes, we're going to disseminate it all. So they took all the cases, and they got the relevant regions, and they hit forward, job done. Now, these cases are not as major, because these other cases in Australia, no money was paid, all right? So these are lesser cases. But they don't follow up. They don't like, oh yeah, let's talk now. Now I've hit it forward. Hey, let me tell me this email I sent. This is a case. You should look at it like this. You should inform the people. You should look at this, etc. They don't do it. They pretty much hit forward, goes into the intelligence mailbox of the regional intelligence people, and they sit on it saying, doesn't seem a big deal, and they don't do anything. Now, this is better than nothing, because at least what happens, how policing generally works, is that the report comes in, it gets entered into a database, and then it gets cross-correlated. So I'll give you an example of what happened. There was an ex-GP in the UK called David Crichton, and he went on the website, and all he did was basically place a basic order saying, I want to kill this guy at this address and a couple of messages. Nothing extensive, didn't pay any money, right? But he got unlucky, and at the website was run by the National Crime Authority. So they took those details, and they put it into the database, and they got a hit. And the answer was, this person being targeted had multiple police complaints against this guy, David Crichton, for stalking and abusive messages. It's a whole issue where he's a financial advisor, and he lost the guy's monies, and the guy was harassing him over it, etc. And so they basically, off the back of that, they basically correlated the previous report, that report, and said, well, this is David Crichton, let's go arrest him. And they arrested him, and they dragged him through the courts, and they didn't get him for soliciting murder. They only got him for basically threatening messages or cyber stalking or something like that. And so in that case, the correlation of intelligence did lead to something. And that's kind of how these cases tend to work if they're not babysitted through, like really, really advocated for. They just live in the intelligence space, which doesn't do anything unless it gets a ping. So it's not nothing, but it's not really a conclusion. So yeah, there are like 8 sort of cases in Australia where there are outstanding murder plots, but they're not super serious. The money hasn't been paid, and they have been reported to the intelligence departments of the regional authorities. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a priority to investigate them. You could, if you wanna get the names and do investigations, you know, go for it. I'll hand them over. But some of them are a bit older now, and they're not major, so you wouldn't necessarily get arrests out of them. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if the people haven't been told. You know, oh, that person trying to kill me. Oh my God, that's my ex-husband who I'm going for a messy divorce with. That person trying to kill me. Oh, I bet it's my business partner who says he's going to make me pay for what I did. Well, that person is trying to kill me. Oh yeah, that's just some guy who talks shit at the bar. I don't give a fuck about him, right? You could those answers are out to be found, but they require really approaching the people and asking them. And so Australia is no longer my priority because I've done that. But you know, so I don't consider it concluded, but I consider it that it's a lower priority. Mm-hmm. Whereas like all of India is not investigated. Like that's a huge thing.
I don't know how you're going to solve that one, buddy. That's out of my jurisdiction.
Yeah, I know.
Good luck.
Yeah.
There was one in the kill list. They said it sounded like the Indian police told the would-be murderer, told the would-be commissioner. Yeah. Instead of telling the victim, they told the person who hired the hitman. That's the state of Indian police right now.
It's not great, no. It would be a major operation to move it into India. I would have to not only raise money, I would have to get expert. Well, I mean, what I'm trying to do is basically trying to put a cash value against every case. How much would it cost to investigate them? And it's hard to say because I don't want to do these case by case. I want to do them region by region. But in someone like India, did you know, in most cases, if you're a business in India and you suffer fraud and you want to report it to the police, you can't. You have to hire a lawyer to report it to the police. They've got so many barriers to entry over there. I'm not, you know, I'm sure that includes like bribes and backhands and all the sort of shit you need to do. You don't want to ask about how it's done, but you need it. It's a whole thing. But then again, there's probably more people on the kill list have been murdered in India, frankly.
Yeah.
So
There might be real hitmen in India.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or the people just done themselves.
Yeah, just like themselves.
And so, but what should my priorities be? Should I be going for the developed countries with strong policing, but then also strong bureaucracy, or should I be going for the less developed countries where you can just basically pay some money and get it done? There are questions there. Doing this whole thing has made me acutely aware of like the real politic of this. Am I too focused on Western countries which are English speaking? Should I be more empathetic towards developing countries? Is that my own biases talking there? But then come up the practicalities of the or things like corruption and which one is up against, etc. And I'm sure there's people out there on the arm just saying, oh yeah, I would just get it investigated. I would just dump the information on the internet. I would just do this. I would just do that, and it would be fine. It wouldn't be a problem at all. Why are you beating yourself up about it, etc.? Why are you making out like it's so difficult? Well, I find it very difficult, and I'm doing my best. I've been doing this for several years. I'm experienced, but ultimately I'm an amateur. I'm just some bloke who came across a bunch of data, who's trying to do the right thing with it, and is stuck doing it many years later.
Oh, you've got yourself in a bind.
Mm.
Yeah, wow. You've got an incredible story. That's thank you for everything you're doing. It's
right. Someone's got to do it. I wish it wasn't me.
You're a hero. You're an everyday hero, man. Wow.
Yeah, well, I like to think anyone in my situation would do the same, right? I mean, I recently posted on Less Wrong. I deliberately use the jargon murder plots like info hazards, and I suggested, and I continue to suggest, that the mere exposure to this information changes a person. Seeing this information and having it essentially in an exclusive sense, knowing that only I have this information, no one else has this information, it has forced me to do these actions, to perform these actions, to do this. Again, I've had people come and say, "Oh yes, thank you for doing it. Oh, it's well done. It's great that you choose to do this. Well done for putting all this effort and going above and beyond." It's like, I don't feel I have a choice here. I'm exposed to this information. It compels action, and thus I'm doing it, and thus I am trapped. I am trapped by the information hazard. So, yeah, I'm averse to taking too much praise for it because, again, I do believe most people in my situation would have done the same. But maybe people wouldn't be stupid enough to get into my situation in the first place. But that's a whole other matter.
I'd like to hope so. I'd like to hope that there's that intrinsic good in people. I'd like to hope that I would do the right thing. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I might conclude the podcast here. It's been such a pleasure having you on. It's yeah, you're an incredible storyteller. I'm
a bit practiced now. I mean, I've given a bunch of interviews now, so I try and pick like anecdotes that like little stories which are fairly self-contained and whatnot. I try not to just go on pure chronological stuff, or pure list of stuff. Eventually, I'll probably publish my list of arrests, and there'll be a lot of dense information out there, and that will create a kind of secondary level of interest and whatnot. But yeah, I just honestly, it's quite cathartic to talk about this stuff because I haven't talked about this for years, and because I've had to do this on the down low as we're trying to keep these investigations on the quiet. And yeah, I've reached the point now that I'm like, this is difficult for me, and I want to share my story with people, at least for entertainment purposes. But maybe someone will come up with an idea of what the fuck I can do and how I can get out of this. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, If anyone's got $100,000 to donate to Chris, please send it through. Let's get him started on his mission to. It sounds like honestly, you're a nonprofit is the best way to go. It doesn't. It sounds like that's kind of the only. I don't know about the only path forward. That's the only path forward that I can see that's effective. So let's try to get you started there for sure. All right. Thank you for coming on. I look forward to seeing you on more podcasts. I hope your message gets spread far and wide. Please, hey, share this on. If you're listening,
I've only got one more podcast I'm due, which is Darknet Diaries. I'm going to be on there and I was on there with Carl. So similar to this, but it was him and Carl, me and Carl. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in media in the future because again, there's talk of more episodes and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. I'm just trying to keep things ticking over and moving forward, really.
Yeah. Hey, well, if you're listening out there, share this around to any true crime fans who would be interested. It's you're doing a good thing by sharing this around. You're helping Chris spread the message. So. Yeah.
And true crime, and of course, if you want a real true crime, juicy stories of people's lives torn apart by murder plots, you can listen to Kill List. But if you actually, interested in what's happening behind the scenes, it's mostly been me working with journalists.
Yep. Kill List has after episode 6, they have like episode 7 onwards. They have each one is an individual story of a person who's been who a plot against them, and they're very entertaining. So yeah, go check it out. All right, Chris, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
Cool. All right. Bye. See you.